By way of deception, make war. That's exactly what's been going on, not for the last 2 weeks, not for the last 2 months, but very much longer than that. It was always the plan that the United States empire, under whichever president, would try to destroy the Islamic Republic of Iran. They tried every which way. They tried sanctions, murderous sanctions, beyond all precedent. But that did not work. They tried terrorism. They tried assassinating nuclear scientists. They tried the sneak attack 2 weeks ago, and they've been lying ever since. Deception was the order of the day, or as Secretary Hegseth said, misdirection. Misdirection is deception. Deception is what Mike Pompeo, the former head of the CIA, told you from his own mouth that he had been doing as the head of the CIA. We lied and we lied and we lied, he said. Any fool who sits down with any emissary of the United States of America now and expects that they are not being deceived, not being lied to, is, well, frankly, an idiot. And that goes for the Russian government in Ukraine. It definitely goes for the Chinese government over any bilateral conflicts between the USA and China. It went for the Iranians, and it goes for the Palestinians in Gaza too. They are one. As Trump told you, actually rather eloquently, when he thanked Netanyahu, before thanking the American service personnel involved in last night's operation, as it happens. He thanked Netanyahu. He described them as a team like has never been seen before, he said, with his typical hyperbole. Everything's lovelier, biglier, and ever more beautiful, according to Donald Trump. But he was not lying when he said that he and Netanyahu were a team. And this leads me to a point that I have to make, though there are many who disagree with me. The truth is that Israel and America are one. They are one country. The truth was given to you by Robert F. Kennedy Jr. when he described Israel in his presidential run as being an aircraft carrier for the United States in the Mediterranean. That is precisely why Israel was founded, virtue of the Balfour Declaration in 1917, which one of Balfour's cabinet described as being a loyal little British Ulster in the heart of the Arab world. It's no longer a British Ulster, but it is definitely an American one. Its purpose there is to be an aircraft carrier. Its purpose there is to sow division in the East and to help state capture the politics of Western countries. But they are not separate things. They are not separate entities. And the tail doesn't wag the dog. This simple matter of canine biology is beyond a lot of people. I've spent the day arguing about it on Twitter. Tails can't wag dogs. Dogs wag tails. The truth is that the Israelis are a very useful aircraft carrier indeed, well worth the 3 to 5 billion a year in ordinary years that the American taxpayer spends on them. I don't know the cost of a fleet of aircraft carriers, but it would be much, much more than they ordinarily give Israel. And sure, they've given a whole ton of money more than normal years over the last 20 months, almost 21 months, but that was for America's purposes, not for Israel's. I had people arguing to me today that the Mossad infiltrated the Pentagon in 2002. Others argued that the Israelis infiltrated the entire system of a United States government in 2002. But that presupposes that the Pentagon was the Salvation Army before 2002. It presupposes that the CIA and the Mossad are two separate, different things. It presupposes that the United States empire prior to 2002 was any force for good or liberty in the world. I've got a queue of names I can give you. 80 countries long, 80 countries long that the United States has invaded since the end of World War II. Invaded or subverted by way of proxy armies, or assisted in the terrorist overthrow, mass murder, assassination, and other means to alter the course of the trajectory of those countries struggling to be free. So Israel can't be blamed for those, you see. It's not Israel that overthrew President Salvador Allende in Chile in 1973. It's not Israel that murdered millions of people in Vietnam, Cambodia, Laos in the 1960s and 70s. It wasn't Israel that launched the Korean War. The United States has been a malignant empire since the end of the Second World War. And I could go back. There are only actually 6 years, in the hundreds of years since the American Declaration of Independence in 1776, that America has not been involved in a foreign war. Just 6 years. And prior to the Declaration of Independence, they were shackling millions of slaves to the plow in their plantations. Black slaves, African slaves, and prior to that, and alongside that, they were murdering and dispossessing scores of millions of indigenous Americans. None of that is the fault of the Jews. You see, this is the problem with the false dichotomy that Israel has captured the United States and forced its leaders to do their bidding. You go looking for Jews. It presupposes that if there was no Israel, America would be behaving like a charitable St. Francis of Assisi. They would not. They were not. They will never be. America behaves like it is because it is a dominant empire. All dominant empires, including the British, the Roman, the Greek, all dominant empires behave in that way. And they accrue to themselves indispensable parts of other people's territory that they use as mercenaries. And that's what Netanyahu is. He's the American state's mercenary. And he has led to a situation where the unsafest place to be a Jew in the world is Israel. No one's going to argue that point, are they? The unsafest time since the Holocaust to be a Jew is now, as a result of Netanyahu's false claim to be acting on the behalf of the Jewish people. Now let's turn to last night's events. According to Channel 13 on Israeli television, the Iranian nuclear program cannot be destroyed by bombs. The IAEA, though they were very quick off the mark, maybe they had people there, declared that there was no trace of nuclear material, emissions, or radiation in the air at the site of last night's bombing. That either means there was no radioactive material there in the first place, or it means it's still extant under the ground and not damaged by the American bombing. What does all that mean? It means that this war will shortly be revealed for what, in fact, it is. it will be revealed as a regime change war. Nuclear was never the issue. Iran signed a nuclear deal with Obama, and it was working perfectly well, according to the IAEA. Iran did not breach one jot or tittle of the commitments that it made in the nuclear deal with the JCPOA. It was Trump that ripped up the nuclear deal. It was Trump that walked away from the negotiating table. It was Trump's ally, mercenary, Israel, which started murdering Iranian nuclear scientists and their families. And at every turn, Iran increased, by way of punishment, the percentage of fissile material that it was enriching. Now, who can blame them? I blame them for not making a nuclear bomb. I exhorted them over and over again to make a nuclear bomb whilst they could. I said to them that nobody will ever attack Pyongyang, but they will attack you precisely because you don't have nuclear weapons. If the nuclear material has not been destroyed, they'll have to attack again, won't they? Or what was the $315 million that was expended last night spent for? What has all this been about if it does not destroy the nuclear material? Of course, what Israeli Channel 13 means is that the only way that you can destroy Iran's nuclear industry is by person, boots on the ground. And that is only possible if you have regime change. They've even appointed the new head of state, that fella in Los Angeles, who's never been in Iran since he was a child. He's the new head of state. And just to throw some sand in the face, there's going to be a Sunni Muslim prime minister. They've got the terrorist group, MK. They've got the Renta mob, Kurdish factions, ready to march on Tehran, but they cannot muster the 1 million strong army that they would require to occupy a country as vast as Iran and destroy a regime with millions, tens of millions of supporters. I get Western liberals on my case saying that people hate the Iranian regime and are only too ready to rise up against it. I wonder if they've ever met an Iranian. I don't mean an Iranian in exile in the West. I don't even mean an Iranian who speaks English and happens to be hanging around a hotel lobby to speak to the journos in the fancy hotels in downtown Tehran. I'm talking about the real Iran, where the real Iranians live. The rural Iran, the religious Iran, the patriotic Iran, who will never agree to allow a 1 million strong army, even if one could be conjured up. And from where could it be conjured up? You think the American people are going to allow Vietnam levels of conscription to go and occupy Iran and welcome the coffins coming back to Arlington day after day? You think the British people are going to do so? The French? Nobody is going to do so. So all they can do is whistle. And that's where I turn to the Iranians. And I hope that they hear me. Don't do anything stupid now. Don't go attacking American bases, which are empty in any case. Don't go killing Americans. That's what they want you to do. Concentrate on what you're doing now. This is a marathon, not a sprint. Enrich your uranium, weaponize it with assistance from friendly countries, so that as an ultimate defense, you have a viable and deliverable nuclear weapon. And concentrate on what you're doing now so dazzlingly effectively, which is reducing the genocidal regime of Israel, of Netanyahu. Reduce it to a palsy. Stop their killing of the Palestinian people in Gaza, in the West Bank, in Jerusalem. Stop their killing of the people in South Lebanon. Stop their killing of the people in Syria. An ISIS terrorist backed by Israel just went into a church in Syria, in Damascus, and massacred 10 people, maimed dozens of people, destroyed the altar and the church. A suicide bomber from ISIS in Damascus. Mar Elias Church is the name. I've been in it. They're murdering people throughout the region. Concentrate on reducing them. Trump will find it more difficult then to get involved further, deeper into this maw, into what is potentially, of course, World War III. Spend the next weeks, months reinforcing not just the concrete, but reinforcing your alliances. I was astounded when I heard from President Putin in St. Petersburg that Russia offered air defenses to Iran and Iran tied them down, turned them down, didn't want them. How foolish that decision now looks. And the reason, presumably, from the reformist president, presumably, was that they did not want to be seen to be putting all their eggs in the Russian basket, because that would send the signal to the Americans that Iran was lost to them forever. Rebuild your alliances. Complete the railroads. Complete the Belt and Road. Weld yourself to the people who actually care about you, and forget about those people who care only about keeping you in servitude. And here is my last point on that. Scorpions sting because they're scorpions. Empires behave like this because they are empires. It's a big job defeating an empire. It can only be done together. Only in very exceptional circumstances, like Vietnam, will anyone be able to defeat the empire on their own, although the Vietnamese people had enormous logistical support and weaponry from the then Soviet Union and from China, and had borders with both of them. It's a difficult job defeating the United States. It has to be done strategically and probably slowly. It will not happen overnight. It's a marathon. When you're running a marathon, you have to pace yourself. And that's my message to them. My message, finally, to the people who were fooled by Donald Trump. People who were fooled into believing that J.D. Vance was having a big fight with Israel in the week, was pushing back, as the current lingo goes. You were all fooled, deceived. Now that Trump's in power, he's behaving in the way that an emperor does. He's a vulgar emperor, an ugly emperor. And that helps us to expose the nature of the empire he leads. We've got big guests coming up. Colonel Douglas Macgregor is first of them. He's up next. Stay tuned.